Okay, so God's way included his son. He sent his son to take the punishment for our sin. Now, you guys have heard of Jesus, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Jesus asked his disciples a question, and I'm going to ask you guys. He said, who do other people say that I am? So how would you answer that? What have you heard about Jesus? What are people that you live with and work with? What do they think about him? Who do they think he is?
Well, I actually have somebody in my family that says that Jesus was a good man, a good prophet. He lived a life such that we should want to emulate it.
Okay,
But
so he's a
just-
great man,
Yes,
but just a man.
just a man,
Okay.
yes.
Dave, how about you?
I would say that, follow the Ten Commandments, that he's put out there for us to live a holy life,
Okay.
God-loving life, and follow in his footsteps.
Yeah. Well, sadly, many people think he either was just a good man or a good teacher, and they kind of leave it at that. But the problem with that is, number one, Jesus claimed that he was both God and man. Now, I understand how hard that is to believe. In fact, when you read the accounts of the New Testament, the disciples heard him clearly say that he was both God and man. But John writes in his gospel that they didn't really believe it till he came back from the dead. So the thought of having someone who looks like us, just a human being, claiming to be God, I don't care how impressive they are, I don't care how many times they prove they're God, apparently it was really hard for them to believe that until he actually died and came back. So I understand that. But on the other hand, we better hope that Jesus is both God and man. And here's why. If Jesus is just a great teacher or just a great man, then we don't know anyone who has a personal testimony about God himself, who God is and what God is like. And we really don't know what happens when we die. On the other hand, if Jesus is God, that was his claim. In fact, he said, I've been with God since the beginning, and it was God who sent me into this world so I could tell you who he is and what he's like. So if Jesus is God, more than just a man or a teacher, then we actually do have an eyewitness who can testify as to who God is. And not only that, one who can testify as to what happens when we die. So we can know with certainty a lot of things that we can't know if he's only a man. So we've got to hope that he's both God and man. Anyway, that was his claim. So that's good. So he can tell us things that we otherwise wouldn't know. And there are a lot of famous people out there, presidents of countries, sports figures. We know they exist, but we don't know much about them because we never had personal conversations. Well, it's the same way with God. You haven't interviewed him lately, have you? You haven't been invited to dinner?
No.
I mean, there's not a whole lot we can say we know firsthand about God, but there's a lot we can say that we know about God through Jesus' testimony about him. So it's important that he's God. But even more important, he said he came to do something. He came to die on the cross, pay the penalty for our sins, and purchase us a place in heaven. And here's why he had to come to do that. Remember my illustration, you guys have this DVD and you want to get rid of it?
Yes.
Well, I've got one too. I've been around longer than you guys have. And my DVD is, it's a long playing version. It would run for months. And everything I've ever said that I shouldn't have said is on here. Everything I've done that I shouldn't have done is on here. Everything that I've thought that I shouldn't have thought is on here. And all the things that I didn't do or didn't say or didn't think that I should have. So this is not good. So let this hand represent me, and there's my sin. Here's God. He's up in heaven looking down on me, and you can see what separates me from God. It's my sin. Now, all of us as human beings try to deal with our sin. We try to turn our life around. Where's my sin?
Still there.
Turn over a new leaf every January 1st.
Still there.
Still there. Still got a problem. In other words, there's nothing I can do to get rid of this. It's stuck to me. But it doesn't mean nothing can be done. But if it's going to be done, it's going to be done by God. And here's what he says he did. He said, Jesus became flesh and came to live among us. We all, like sheep, have gone astray. Each of us has turned to our own way. I bet you can relate to that, right? We're Americans. We want to run our life our way. We are independent contractors. We don't work for anybody. We've each turned to our own way. But the Bible goes on to say, yet God laid on Jesus all of my sin. So when Jesus died on the cross, he paid the penalty for my sin, and he threw it away. It's gone. Not only that, to prove that he was God, he rose from the dead, ascended back into heaven, and now when God looks down at me, he sees me sinless. Now we can have a relationship. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Now the question people have at this point, well, if Jesus died on the cross to take away my sin, does that mean he took away everybody's sin? Is everybody going to heaven? What do you think?
You want to believe everybody is gonna, you want that. You want to believe everybody's gonna go to heaven.
Okay, but what do you think?
No.
In fact, quite the opposite. Jesus said only a few are going to make it. So in spite of the cross and all the wonderful work that he did, yet the same Jesus who did all that, who really was God, said only a few are going to make it. Which of course begs the question, why so few if the work that he did was so magnificent? That would be a good question, wouldn't it?
Would be.
Would you like to know one?
Yes.
And would you like to know how you can be in the small group of people who are going to make it?
Definitely.
As opposed to the large group of people who aren't?